tonight I have a very special guest. It's Jannie Ho, who I met through Kids Comics Unite. And we exchanged, I met you through Kids Comics Intensive, I think, first, or I don't know whether I met you.
Probably.
Yeah,
Yes, I
probably.
jumped right in.
Yeah, which year did you take Kids Comics Intensive?
I think 2021
That was the
and 2022,
Oh, that was
but
the second year.
2021. Maybe,
Okay.
yes, the second year.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so that was super cool. And then I met you in person at was it New York Comic Con or Anime New York?
Yeah, it was Anime New York City. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. There was a
Yeah.
meetup and we got to chat
Yeah,
there.
so I that we had a table because I happened to be
Mhm.
friends with Peter Tatara, who was at that time the person who was like the I don't know, director of Anime New York City, and he comped us a table. So because of that, we went into overdrive and made ourselves a little table there, which was super cute.
Yeah,
And
who's it from?
what?
Oh,
Maritza, did you say something? And then I thought, okay,
it
okay.
was
And
totally accidental, sorry.
so anyway, and I invited people from the community to help staff the booth, basically to be volunteer and stand there and tell people what Kids Comics Unite was. And Janie, you were one of the people there, and
Yeah.
you brought this little mini comic here, which I basically cannot stop talking about. It's been 2 years, and I'm constantly like, this is the greatest thing ever since sliced bread.
Thank you. No, I'm really glad I got a chance to meet you and we got to chat. So that was like a great opportunity.
Yeah, so
It
we
was
will
fun.
tell you more later in our conversation about this particular thing here. But first, Janie, I would love it if you could tell everybody about how you became an illustrator. Because if you
Mhm.
want to go to Janie's website, you have done a lot of books.
I
You're very
have.
prolific. So tell us, like, how did this all happen?
Oh, it's kind of a long story. I've been kind of in children's publishing for a very long time. So I actually thought I didn't know that illustration could be a career. So I went to Parsons School of Design in New York thinking that I was going to be a fashion designer because when I went to art school, like it was a miracle my parents let me go to art school, Asian parents, but I was there and I thought I was going to go into fashion and then I learned about illustration. To make a long story short, I switched to illustration. I actually, the funny thing was the first job I got out of school was in fashion and it was for kids kind of children's wear. And I actually did not like the job at all. I realized I did not like to be in fashion. And I very quickly got a job in children's publishing. And so that's where I started was like being a designer. And um, I worked at it's no longer there. I worked at Nickelodeon magazine, so I just did a lot of like magazine stuff. So I was at Nickelodeon magazine for a while. I actually
Did
worked at
you work
School.
there with Chris Duffy?
I did. I know Chris Duffy. It's
Oh
Chris.
my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. So I was there for
Wow.
like a short while, but I loved it there. Yes, Chris was there. Dave, worked
Hey,
with Dave
Roman?
Roman. Yes, so
Mhm.
he was there. So that was kind of my first gig into kind of children's publishing. And it was a really good job because I actually, even though I didn't do illustration, I got to commission illustration. And so I kind of got to learn like how are you, what is the other side of the industry where like I found out a lot of people were looking at your work. It's not just your contact, you have to be on time. So I learned a lot of little different things, commissioning illustration. And so I was, in children's publishing. I left. I went to Scholastic. I was at Scholastic book clubs for a little bit, doing design work for their book clubs. And that was when I was like, oh, I really want to go back and become an illustrator. Because I was seeing a lot of the books there, like the children's books. If everybody knows about Scholastic book clubs,
Mhm.
it was just like, each month it was just like all the picture books that are out for the month for the kids the flyers that go into the schools. And so, yeah. And so I was like, I want to kind of go back. I really wanted to be an illustrator then. And so I started building my portfolio when I was at Scholastic. And then kind of doing back and forth, trying to like being a designer and trying to do illustration on the side. And then eventually I was like doing other magazine. I went to work at Time Magazine for kids. So a lot of children's publishing on like the other side. And then eventually I got an agent, and I was really kind of burning both candles, like two sides of the candle. And I was burning out because I was starting to get illustration work while I was still kind of a full-time art director. And then so I just kind of quit my job and just said, I'm just going to be an illustrator full time. And so, yeah, and I did that for probably, I mean, up to now for like 15 plus years. I'm kind of old, guys. so
So
I've been
it was
there
15,
for a long,
it was
yeah.
15 years ago that you quit the
Yeah,
art-
probably more than 15 years.
Oh wow.
Probably, yeah, that. And so I was just being an illustrator, doing a lot of books, a
Mhm.
lot of picture books, board books, like activity books. I do a lot of like, commercial stuff too. So
Mhm.
a lot of that kind of thing. A lot of stuff is like maybe picture books, but then maybe activity books or just educational stuff. So that's what I was just kind of being an illustrator for a very long time, I guess. So that's why you see a lot of the books that I've done. So, and my work tends to kind of lean towards really young. I think everybody who starts out in children's books, like at least for me, was like the ultimate thing was to do picture books. And then, but my art was just like so young, like my sensibility is so young that my art gets pushed to like, hey, I was getting a lot of like board book offers or like activity book offers, even younger than picture books. So it was always like a push for me to kind of do the board books, but then also illustrate the picture books. And I guess eventually graphic novels.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my next question, which was what made you decide like I want to give graphic novels a try?
I think it was just like the past maybe 5 years. I've always been interested in comics. So I was always like, when I lived in New York, I was doing mocha, for fun and just kind of, I mean, I've always read comics, a lot of manga. So, but for the past 5 years, I think I had a sudden change. Like I already did all the board books I can do sometimes, how many, I'm known as like chicken girl online. So I do a lot of chicken related books. Eventually I do a lot of like farm board books. Like, I don't know how many farm board books I've done. So like, it's like, you're kind of like, okay, I've done all of this now. What's next for me? And I guess, graphic novels maybe 5 years ago was kind of coming up, and I was like, I actually like this. Like, maybe why don't I give this a try? So it was just kind of this weird segue of like maybe, trying something new, doing something new. When you've been doing something for 10 years, you kind of want to keep it fresh, right? You want your work to be fresh. So my comics and my picture board book work is a little bit different. It looks a little, it feels so strange to me. That's kind of almost like they're both me, but I think the two styles are so distinct, and also the way that I do them is very distinct. But anyways, yeah, so that's what I've been working on. Like I want to do the comics. It feels very natural to me. I can tell a story. So with it, right?
Do you have the Lost Mitten with you right now?
I do. Let's see.
Because it just came out, right?
It just came out. It came out.
Hold it up so everybody can see it.
Let's see, shiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, this came
It's part
out.
of this line at Holiday House called I Can Read Comics.
Yes, I like to read comics.
Or I like to read comics. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's part of a line. So it's very early reader graphic novels. So it's very like, even the text is they make sure the text is very suitable for the age level. Like the vocabulary is very, dialed down to the early reader crowd. So yeah, so this is this came out.
You said that you have some like production stuff you could show us.
I can, yes.
Because people love seeing that, and I do too. So I would.
Yeah, so I put this together just today, like very quickly, but I thought I can show what happened. But I actually did this book at the Kids Comic Intensive as part of my assignment. Got a shout out
so
to
great.
my crit group a little later. Let me see if I can do this. This is something quick I put up. So this is part of the Holiday House line. I like to read comics, and this is just the cover. It's an early reader graphic novel. It's about 40 pages. So this is the cover I originally did. So it's originally called Tracks in the Snow because it was inspired by my family. I guess this was like during COVID, like the winter after COVID, like 2021 winter. My family, I went to this workshop where we were going to literally you go into the snow and you're tracking you're looking at animal tracks, and then there's like a little teacher guide instructor to tell you like what those animal tracks are. And there's like the lady was talking, I was like, and we were walking on the snow, we were making our own tracks, and I was thinking, what if the animals were like tracking my tracks? And so because we were there tracking the animals, but we were making like prints all over the snow too. So that's how kind of the idea came to me. And I brought this to my group when I guess I was in the winter of 2021, and I took the intensive in 2021. And that's when I kind of thought of this story, and I brought it with my group, which we still meet by this day, by the way. They were so good. Shout out to Jade and Martina and Katie. We still meet, and they were just helping me every day, every week with this. We met. So I took it to the class. This is kind of, I'm gonna close this. So this is just how I built it. I didn't really know how to write a graphic novel. I was actually looking at what I did. I almost forgot what I did. And I actually did this in a picture book format because that's all I knew was picture books, because I wrote picture books too. And but then I changed it when I took this class, and this was the storyboarding that we did in the class. So I wanted to show this because it was just like a little scribble and then like a description of what I want the story to be. And it's funny because I kept drawing I did all of this, and let's see. Oh, I don't know if I can move this. Oh, here we go. So like you can see it's like really scratchy, but this was just like the storyboard part. Shots of the print that grandpa and girl makes. I should probably mention that this story is about a rabbit and a mouse that finds a lost mitten in the snow. That's probably should say that in the first place. So this is kind of like the prequel of what happens in the story. So I did this in the class. Girl drops a red mitten near a tree. Girl and grandpa walks away in the distance. The in-between shots, so some shots of the mitten and the tracks on the ground. And so I just kind of had the little sketch and I wrote it out. But so what I learned in the class was kind of just not putting all the stuff together first, but to do the storyboard. And then this is kind of what I put together with all the images that I had, kind of piecing it together.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see this is really, really rough.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually what I submitted to the publisher. It was kind of like this rough. I had a few color pages, but basically I roughed out the whole thing, like the whole 40-page graphic novel. So I didn't think 40 pages was that much, because if you think about a picture book, like a self-ended picture book, it's already 40 pages, and I've dummied that before. And I felt like I just tell better stories visually. Like I just wanted the editor to know what I was thinking, and it was just easier for me to kind of have it all roughed out. So this is what I kind of submitted, actually. It was like all rough like this, maybe a page or two that was in color, but most of it was kind of like this rough, which I was still a little bit kind of nervous about how rough it is, but I did the whole 40 pages. And this is actually the color. This is actually just the color final. This is how it really turned out. You can see like just the vocabulary is really simple. It's really big and clean, easy to read.
Mm-hmm.
This is this other page. And then I just wanted to show some covers that I did of some options that I gave them. the story goes that the rabbit puts the mitten on his head and the
Mm.
ears, and it becomes like a mitten hat.
Mhm.
But ultimately, they chose the middle one because they didn't kind of want to give that away just yet. So
Mhm.
the cuteness of like him, the surprise of the rabbit doing that, as you know, using the mitten as a hat. So we kind of kept it like them just finding the mitten first.
Mhm.
So I think it's interesting, like where in the part of the story do you want to give away, especially for
Yeah.
like a younger reader set like that. But so yeah, I
So
think
who is your editor?
Della Farrell.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
did the story change at all? So from the storyboard that you submitted, because you said you had done the whole thing when you
It
submitted it.
changed a little bit, but I'm always afraid. There is like a little nervousness of if the things are going to change. Things changed a little bit, but not by much. It wasn't like this overall story arc change. Maybe a few panel has changed. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
some panels merged together. Maybe an animal was replaced by another animal
Mm-hmm.
because they meet different animals as they're trying to return the lost mitten. But
Mm-hmm.
nothing like too overwhelming that it was like, oh no, I have to reshuffle all the panels. So it wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna stop sharing.
So do you feel like the process for creating, because this is an early reader and you said it's 40 pages, and which is not
Hmm.
that different from a self-ended picture book,
Hmm.
because of the age level and because of your process, do you feel like it wasn't that different than doing a picture book? Or is it still quite different?
It was quite different.
Okay, tell us more. Tell us why. Why was it different?
Well, because there's just so much more. Like every single panel, it's like a beat
Hmm.
versus like I was so used to the picture book. You know, I think if anybody's worked at picture books, it's kind of like the beginning, the book, what's going to happen. Like you kind of have a beat of like, the first couple of pages, the set starts and where the climax is. But I feel like it's like a little bit more micromanaged with
Hmm.
like all the scenes. And then just the terms of laying out all the storyboards is a whole other thing too. So it felt it felt quite different. I mean, I was definitely afraid when I like submitted that and I knew that there was going to be changes. I'm used to changes, but I was afraid that if like, it's kind of like comics with like graphic novel, you pick out one panel and you want to change it. Sometimes the whole thing can kind of crumble down and then you have to rebuild it again. Versus I feel like in a picture book, it's easy to kind of have the storytelling sometimes be in the text, sometimes be in the pictures, that there's a lot more wiggle room
Hmm.
versus in graphic novels it's not as much, which is it's nice both in its own way. Like I
Hmm.
can get a little bit more detailed. I can control the timing more in a graphic novel. So that's really nice too. But
So do you
definitely
think,
different.
do you already have other graphic novels in the works, or?
I do. I can't talk about it though. But yes, yes, yes. So it will be something. I'm bumping it up to 80 pages at this
Ooh.
point. So this is going
Mhm.
to be double, and it's going to be challenging for me. So, but we'll see. We'll see. I think
Mhm.
it's doable. I think now that I got the hang of it, it was just really nice to kind of have the 40-page book, and it feels sort of like, at least like a picture book page, but page count, but then bump it up in terms of page count and just like slightly older, just like turn it up a little bit. I think my work is still very young, but
Mhm.
it's funny that there's like all this I think a lot of publishers are wanting like very specific these early, there's like younger
Mhm.
early readers and then like a slightly older early reader graphic novels.
Mhm.
There's like such little differences. So it's
Mhm.
nice. It's nice. So it's still young, but I'm pushing for the 80 page. It's at 80 pages right now. So
Okay. I saw that there's like tons of questions in the chat, and I feel
oh,
like
thank you.
I'd like to, since we're on this topic, I think I should call on people to ask their questions while we're talking about
Okay.
it. So going back, I want to make sure we get everybody. So Stan, you had a question about contractions.
Yeah, I noticed that there were places in your story where there could have been a contraction, and
Mhm.
ordinarily in conversation you might hear that, but there wasn't one, and I wondered if there was a guideline for the level of reader you're writing for that says no contractions.
Yeah, absolutely. It was purposely changed for the age level. So originally my dummy was just had contractions and had all the things. And then yeah, then that was just like that slight tweak that they had. That nice catch. Yes, that's what they this is like very, very young, early reader. I mean, it's part of like a line in the series that's like literally saying I like to read comics. It's like learning to read almost. So yes, they did change that a little bit.
Yeah, very cool catch.
Yeah.
Okay, Mary Jo, are you here? Did you want to ask your question?
I am here.
Oh,
I
cool.
just wondered what advice you have for author onlys who are non-artists that have stories in this genre.
Oh, I mean, I can talk about Fry Guys because I'm the illustrator of Fry Guys, this book, which I actually did before the Lost Mitten. So I worked with Eric Duran, who was the writer, and I was the illustrator of this book. So it's absolutely possible. I had a fantastic time working on this. There'll be more books of this coming. And he wrote a fantastic manuscript for me. So it's absolutely possible. She, first, this was my first graphic novel job, which I'm the illustrator. And I was honestly, I was a little nervous about how this was going to go. I was like, oh no, like, yeah, and this is 80 pages. So this is pretty, and this was like a pretty high page count for me personally to work on. But it was fantastic. He just broke it down into script, and I was able to turn this in like really smoothly into a graphic novel. So it was absolutely possible.
Do you happen to know how his script got acquired? Is it Andrews McMeel?
Yes. I'm not quite sure. I think it was, I don't know if it was like an in-house thing that they wanted to produce and they contacted him. I'm not quite sure how it worked. But they had the script. Then they asked, and then Erin Pesca asked me to illustrate because she knew I love drawing anthropomorphic food. It was just like the perfect heavenly project. But I mean, it was like his script was actually really fantastic. So it's absolutely possible. It was just like more like a movie script. He really had a good understanding of panel breakdowns, but still enough kind of wiggle room for me to play with. So it was like a really good balance. So it's possible.
Okay. The next question was from Samantha.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering about choosing color palettes for books. I struggle with that. Like mine always end up looking like I spilled a bag of Skittles, like I like bright colors. I was just interested to hear if you have a deliberate way of choosing your color palette or if it's just intuitive.
I don't know. It's a little intuitive at this point, but I think that even, not even talking about graphic novels, I think for just children's books and like picture books or board books, the color palettes that I pick. I think in my very beginning of my career, I realized that I've always been pretty good with color, and I realized, like you said, bag of Skittles, like I was using everything. I mean, the trick is to limit your color palette by a lot. Like I didn't think in the beginning when I was first in children's book that I was using a lot of colors, but then I realized I was. And so kind of limiting that color palette. And also another really good trick is that for me is I usually love the bright colors because my work is very young. So like the yellow I would pick would be like bright yellow. The red that I always go to would be like that, that satchel, like the 100, red. So I think to balance it off with like sometimes a muted neutral to go with like the bright really makes it sophisticated, I guess. I mean, I can talk about color to color forever, but I think definitely like rein it down, like limit that color palette by a lot. I think it'll it'll be like it'll feel like a whole new color palette almost. I guess that's what I can say.
So when you're just getting started with doing the initial color drafts, I guess, do you play around until you find something you like, or do you feel like right away you just know in your head which colors you want to use?
I play a little bit because I think it gets a little trickier with the graphic novels, but it's still not possible. But when I was doing picture books, or I still do picture books and board books, it's like I use Adobe Illustrator for my work there. And it was just so easy for me to swap colors, like change it all really, really quickly. So it was just like, boom, drop it. Like, I don't like this red, boom, I can change it to a different red really quickly. So I'm like always adjusting and playing around before I get it right. So, but with the graphic novels, I guess I had to have a little bit of an initial kind of test run for like a page or two to see if this is really going to work. But it's okay. Like, I feel like my color palette could be a little bit better in my graphic novels, but I think as I go on, I think I'll do better. A little bit of a test run, I guess, for a page or two.
Okay. Let's see, who was next? Well, Stan asked if you got double the advance for your 80 page.
Double the, not quite. It's funny because the book that I'm gonna work on next, I initially sent it as 64 pages. I originally wanted to be 80, but the story kind of ended at 64. But after talking to my editor, I realized I kind of want to bump it back to 80, and there's wiggle room to bump it to 80. And she let me bump it up to 80, I guess. It wasn't a big deal. So I was like, I do want to try for 80. So I'm going to add another chapter and maybe a few fun things in the back. But I think that's what I want to shoot for. So it was just like an opportunity that came to me. So I was like, okay, I know I'm making more work for myself, which is ridiculous, but you know, we're all crazy like that. So
Yeah. Well, Maritza, you were sort of going to ask about that, about bumping up to 80 pages. Did you have any specific questions to drill down on that?
Well, I missed part of it because I had to look away for something, but so you may have said it already. I was wondering if your story, when it was shorter, was complete, and or even like storyboarded out or anything, and then you were bumping up to 80, or were you like kind of getting to a point and thinking like, I think this needs more to it, and then going to 80? Sorry if you did already say it.
Oh, no. It was the 64. So my next project I'm working on right now, it was submitted as 64-page dummy. So it was already all sketched out.
Okay.
Yes, it was. It was very rough. It was definitely very rough. I had maybe 1 to 2 spreads. I wasn't like color. But yes, it was roughed out to 64-ish, you know. And then like, I think after my editor kind of ran through it a little bit, and there was like, you know, some room to play, and we could just kind of discuss the page count, because there was like little fun things I wanted to do in the back, but there was no more. It was like really right on 64. So
right.
So if we bump it up to 80 and there's like a little knickknacks in the back, you know, a little back mat, a little fun stuff, an activity, I can add in chapter, and I think I can bump it up to 80. So that was what happened. But yeah, it was kind of complete. So I'm kind of essentially making more work for myself, but it was just like something I wanted to do, but it was complete.
Cool. Gotcha.
So, can you say what the age level is for the 80-page graphic
So
novel?
it's a little bit, it should be a little bit older. So it would be probably a little bit older, like probably near Fry Guys, somewhere here, because Fry Guys is still considered like early reader. This one is definitely younger. So maybe like somewhere in between this and this, which is very crazy to say, because it's like, you know, this is probably, you know, kindergarten, first, second, around floating early elementary, but a little older than the Lost Mitten shooting for. We'll see.
Stan, did you want to ask about the instruction page for readers?
Sure. Yeah, I've seen a few early graphic novels that have an instruction page that, you know, are how do you read a graphic novel? And I didn't know what the best practices was with that, and if that was just something really for the parents, because kids don't seem to have real problems reading things like that. But I don't know.
Oh, yeah, like I think maybe some books do, right? But this one doesn't. None of the Lost Mitten does not. I don't think so. No, this is like straight up all 40 pages. I think maybe like something online to kind of accompany the line or something, but I don't think it's necessary. This was like, I wonder if that's like more like a teaching resource. I wouldn't, unless it's like part of the publisher's thing. I don't think I should worry about that too much. Kind of take up your precious page, your precious spread for your story instead.
To help you get up to 80 though.
We get up to 80. I know at first I was getting a little nervous, but I you know what, I can add. I'm gonna have to add an extra chapter, a little bit of a how-to. Actually, there's gonna be a little bit of a recipe in the back. I'm giving it away a little bit, but like it was the recipe that I really wanted to put in the back. So I kind of bumped it up to a little bit, but yeah.
I'm all about the recipes, so I'm very glad
Yes.
that you do that.
Yes, yes.
So Brian, are you able to unmute yourself? You had a question about the time frame?
Yes, I'm unmuting myself.
Brian, I worked with Brian at the fashion
Hi, Jane.
place. Hi.
Yeah, you know, because just coming off of some graphic novel projects myself, I'm always curious how much time they give you to work on these.
Oh,
Because mine's a little longer than yours. The ones I've been doing are 96 pages, but you had 40 pages and now 80 pages. I'm just wondering, how much time are they giving you to complete artwork?
I think for the Lost, I can't even remember. It was generous. The funny thing is, it's because the Lost Mitten, because it's like it was really, like I said, it was already all sketched out.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing was already sketched out. So really it was just like a little bit of editing and then inking and coloring it. And my technique is not that complicated. So it didn't take me too long. Then my next project, 80 pages, I'm getting a year at least. Maybe not, no, I wouldn't say a year, maybe 9 months now. So I have artwork, it's due September, and I'm just starting the project now. So 9 months. And then for Fry Guys, it was really rough. I was probably 6 months, 7 months from getting the manuscript and then getting all the line art and final color art in, something like that.
Okay. Thanks.
How much time do you get? I'm wondering for a 96.
I
Do you get more?
I got 11 months
Okay.
each, but it's not enough.
Well, it's never enough. Like I was slaving away basically. I just finished Fry Guys 2 and I was basically slaving away for quite a while.
I'm still day job in children's fashion after all these years. So you know,
right. Yeah.
it's like hard.
So,
you're doing what you're doing full time right now. So
yes.
makes a difference. But
it does, because it kind of, I have the energy level during the day to work on it. So yeah, the timing is hard. It's hard. I think it's sometimes when it's a series too, then you barely get a breather. You just kind of hop on to the next one. So
with the one I'm working on, I mean, there's no breaks between the books. So it's been a trip. Anyway, okay. Congratulations on the book. It looks wonderful. I can't wait to get it. Thank
you. Brian's the best thing that happened to that fashion job. I met him in that fashion job. I worked there for like maybe like 8-9 months. I don't know. It was a very short stint, but
yeah, Brian's books are the Bumble Brothers. So if anybody wants to look those up, the Bumble Brothers. Also, early readers, but a little bit older than, yeah. Kevin, can you unmute yourself? You had a question about execution.
Yes, let me see if I can do that. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Well, the question I had was, what was the best advice that someone had given you regarding the execution of a graphic novel? And this is obviously in comparison to what you have been doing before.
Wow, that's a good question. Best advice to execute a graphic novel. I don't know if it's specifically graphic novel. I have to think about it. I mean, the first thing that jumped to my mind was the time management for sure. I was actually just talking to my husband about it because I was on a quite like a heavy deadline for Fry Guys too. And it's just not I feel like it wasn't the same as a deadline for a picture book. I felt like it was definitely like if I missed a few pages, then it's all kind of come tumbling down versus like a picture book. It was just, it felt a little bit more manageable. So I have to manage like the page count of like, okay, today I'm going to work on page 45, 46, 47. If not, and if I miss a day, it's all going to come tumbling down. I think that kind of stress was a little bit too much. So I think I would have to, I put that on my calendar, but I think I'll have to build in breaks in between, like a little like sick day or a break day. Like you can't be working 7 days straight. It's just not gonna sustain yourself. Like you have to have a day where you take a break, but then you can come back with fresh eyes. So just, yeah, time management is the biggest thing, I think. In terms of just kind of like executing, like actually making the book, right?
And what's going to be easier on your next book after completing what you've done so far?
The easy thing. Knowing that I have a little bit of a process, I think in the beginning, the Lost Mitten, I was lost a little bit. It was like something really new. I'm always like, I think in the beginning I was like, wasn't there supposed to be a way? Is there like an actual way? Like I need a manuscript. I need like a manual of how to do this the right way. What is everybody who's doing the right way? And you realize there is no right way as long as you can produce the art, right? So now that I have a process, it feels really good. Like all that kind of stuff is kind of taken care of. So now I can just work on the actual story, the making the art really nice and the layout really nice. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question.
Edna, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, hi. Great to see you.
Hi.
Yes, I wanted to know a little bit about your character development. Like you have stories that you created yourself and the characters that have evolved for you that way, but then also you created characters, maybe you didn't think up the characters like from their origin, but maybe you've been working with somebody who thought up the characters. So anything you want to share about that, like the difference and also what it's like for you in your own character development process? Like,
oh gosh. Yeah, you know what I realized, speaking of character development, is that I'm very character driven. Like I'm working on another idea. I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a graphic novel or picture book. This is just like a seed of what I want to do. But I realize like my biggest thing is that all my stories, I need to have my character. I need to fall in love with the character. And I also need to fall in love with the way it looks. Like I'm a little bit of a designer too. Like if I don't have a character that I kind of like the look of, or like maybe the little color palette that I fell in love with, and the characters I want to know better, like I can't have that story. I think the Lost Mitten was a little bit different in that I really did get inspired by going to that snow tracking workshop and like that little seedling of an idea. But I think most of my art or most of my stories is very character driven based. It's like if I don't fall in love with the character first, there's really nothing for me to dig from, I guess. I don't know. And in terms of other people's kind of stories and characters I illustrate, I think it's fun. And sometimes it's kind of like somebody did all the work for me. Now I can just do it visually. I mean, I think that's fun too. So it's kind of like two different things. But
how much research would you do like for like either one? Like, do you do a lot of research and do like, like turnarounds and spend a lot of time developing so that your hand gets really used to drawing things a certain way? Just curious about
I
that.
don't. I think right away, I don't do turnarounds really. Maybe a little bit of sketches. Like for the Fry Guys, for example, when they first meet, like, do you, like, you know, they're like, you know, you have a project, they're like, do you want to draw some waffle fries for us characters? You know, like a sweet potato. And then these characters, they kind of just came right away. I didn't make any changes to these, like very, very little. And then they loved it and I loved it too. So it was very, very quick, I guess. Yeah, it's very quick. And then if I love it, and then I'll work with it. So I don't, yeah, I know. I although I find that the people who do like the turnarounds and all that, like really, really, they're really beautiful. But I think I don't think that's what I do. It's like either I love it or I don't, and then I move on.
Cool. Thank you for sharing your process. It's great to hear it.
Yeah, thank you.
Actually, Shirley, I think you had some more process questions. Can you unmute?
Oops. Hi.
Hi.
there.
Hi, Shirley.
It's so nice to see you.
I know,
Thanks
nice to see you.
Thank you for having this. This is awesome. I'm so been such a fan for years.
No,
But,
likewise. It's like I know you, but it's like I know we have not met like in real life.
I know. I do. I have a question in regards to now I've heard that you do write picture books, and so in terms of your storytelling, is your process for storytelling for graphic novels similar, different? And if you could kind of describe your process for building your stories, that would be really great.
Oh, gosh.
I know it's a
I
big,
don't,
it's a
I
big
don't
question.
know if it's the same of it or I think both is the same.
Okay.
Like the story would be the same, but like at least for now, I just really like the graphic novel process because it breaks down the beat more. I realized I'm trying to go do picture books too, but like right now I'm really, really in love with the panels and the graphic novel format. In terms of trying to tell the story, it's like you know what I like? It's because I think I like this format. It's because I like details. So you know what, like all the search and find, like my favorite picture book, we go back to picture book, like it's the Richard Scarry Busy Busy World, if anybody knows this picture book. So this is one of my favorite picture books, and that's why I really wanted to be a children's book illustrator. And it's like all about like finding all the little details in the images. And I think that for graphic novels, what I really love about it is because then I can tell, like I can tell the reader like every little detail that I want to tell, versus in picture book is a little less so, right?
Okay.
It's like, you know, there's only 32 pages, there's only certain spreads, that only certain visual images I can give, versus in graphic novels, it's like, oh, the little details. So I can then all the things that's picture like in my head, I can actually put it down for the reader to read. So I guess my process is just to like draw every single thing that I see, I guess as a movie in a way. But to have like, yeah, but to have like a real process, it's been like a little bit of writing and a little bit of drawing. I don't know if that's like, I feel like it's been a little bit different each time. So I don't know if that answers your question a little bit.
Well, I'm curious because you know how there's all these, what do you call it? These not formulas, but specifics in terms of story with different acts and then the story arc and all that.
3 tries. Yeah, a lot of my stories, I mean, it's basically the 3 tries, right? 3 tries and a change. And I've been kind of using that as, you know, with the Lost Mitten has 3 tries into the next one is more like, since this feels like an older one, I was breaking it down in chapters. So now my next project that I have has actually like little chapters, which kind of breaks down. It still kind of follows that same rule of like the 3 tries and a change, you know, a change at the end, but just in little chapters. And the chapters are like, you know, one of the chapters are like 3 spreads, so like 6 pages. So it doesn't have to be like this gigantic like chapter. I mean, I learned that from kind of mentor text. I call it that book, the Layla and the Bots, like the Scholastic Acorns. Is it Acorn series? One of the nuts, I don't know, acorns, and they have like different lines, but like I was studying that as kind of like a little mentor text for the early reader set, and just that pacing. I was kind of studying that, which was really nice. That applied, even though it was like a chapter book. They do mostly chapter book series. It's like still like the pacing of it was really nice. So I was kind of following that too. So
that's Vicky Fang's books. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I love Vicky's stuff. So I love of observing like just different. Yeah. So I buy a lot of, I guess I buy and read a lot of little like young chapter books, and not necessarily graphic novels, but it's like the idea, the beat, the pacing is there. But then now I can go and tell my story and then have as much imagery and panels as I want, I guess.
All your details. Yeah. Oh, I mean,
all the details that I want, right? So
well, congratulations. I can't wait to have them all.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the answers.
Bob, you had a question about developing a style and how Jannie's style is kind of different in her picture books than her graphic novels. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah. Well, I like her versatility. She's able to adapt to different environments. When you went from a 32-page picture book, because I'm a huge fan of, I remember going to see you talk and you were showing your picture books and all the board games you did. And I fell in love with your palette and your color sense and everything and your whole design sense. And so that was your whole world then. And now I see you jumping into the world of graphic novels, and it seems you made a smart decision. You made a decision to change your style, like, because you can't keep that level of illustration that you did for Bear and Chicken in a graphic novel for 32 pages. But
I tried though.
So was that a conscious choice? Like you just basically said from day one, I have to change my style.
No, it wasn't like a conscious style, but I tried. I tried to do the Lost Mitten in the Bear and Chicken style, my picture books. And I did a test run. I showed it to my Kirk group, actually. I think it was a long time ago. And it did not work because it's just, I couldn't sustain that. There was just no way, the way that I was working, just the process itself, even if I wanted the look of it, the process itself, it can't sustain the level of all the panels that I have to do. It was just not going to work. And it didn't look good either. I didn't like it. So, so I scrapped that right away. And then I was just kind of doing like my chicken girl comics too, kind of in the Procreate, line style and Procreate. And when I got an iPad, so it was just kind of like natural for that to be, because just the process was easier. It kind of like, okay, I can tackle the 40-page graphic novel. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. I know somebody was mentioning like people have like, even those of you who do like 200 pages, that's just, my mind's going to explode. My 80 pages already making my mind explode. So it's a lot of work, and I just couldn't sustain it as a process. That's why. But I mean, I don't know if it was a conscious choice either. Like I'm still trying this out. It was just like it was a scary thing, but it was just something I really love to do. I feel it fits my personality. I still feel like I have to see what's going to come of it almost. Because, all my other work too, it's like very different. So helping each other, maybe, the two different worlds are helping each other, I hope.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, and I want to talk a little bit about
talk about
this is a book for grown-ups, not kids, right? And I just think it's so funny that you said you're really attracted to work for very, very, very young children, and then on the other hand, you do these comics that are totally not for kids. So, how did this get started?
I think it was, I do the very young kids books, so I've done a lot of ABC's books, and I love doing them. So ABC's books are my thing. But I think I think one day I just wanted to write about a book about creativity. It was actually, this was years and years ago. I don't know if Adobe has this anymore, but Adobe had this creative residency that they used to do. Like you can apply to be a Adobe resident, something or another, and they, you know, they give you money and you get to do whatever. Yeah, this was years ago. I don't know if they do that anymore, but I was like, oh, maybe I should try this out. Like that sounds cool. Like what can I do? And I was already thinking about wanting to draw a book about creativity. So one day when I was on a road trip driving to Pennsylvania to see my parents, I was thinking, oh, let me just think of like each letter of an alphabet and think of like different things about how I feel about creativity. And then so this car ride, I was just jotting down different letters that kind of stands for different things, you know, P for procrastination, and about imposter syndrome, I for imposter syndrome. And it just went from there. And yeah, it took me, and then so I kind of submitted like a proposal, and it wasn't even about comics. It was just kind of like, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but it was just like ABC of creativity or something like that. And I submitted it to them. I didn't get the residency, but then this idea was still living in me. And I was like, then at that time I was starting to get into comics. I was drawing myself as a chicken. And I said, why not? I'll just talk about me, like what my perception of all these creative struggles I have is. And so that's how the book came to be. It took a long time though, like from that seed of an idea to actually like finishing out the whole alphabet took probably a few years. At the end, I was kind of each week I was promising people like I would do the next letter, and that kind of motivated me. And I didn't really realize that people were actually following me intensely, you know, each week. And it was really lovely. And then it took me a long time, and there was a big gap between finishing the whole alphabet to actually like printing the book. And then when I printed the book, I was kind of shocked people actually wanted to buy it, because, and I realized, oh, people were following it. Like it was really lovely. Like I think the fact that there was like a boundary for myself was really nice. Kind of like, you know, you do the A, then you do the B, and then the C, and it kept me consistent. And I think then people were following it, and people can relate. You know, we're all crazy a little bit as creatives, and we all kind of have the same crazy thoughts in our head. You know, it talks about, what do I talk about? Different things like guilt, distraction, burnout, competition. It's just like a little booklet of me drawing myself as a chicken, talking about these things, kind of like, you know, I talk about competition, just, you know, once you get a book deal, why is everybody else getting 20 book deals? It's just like, you know, stuff like that.
So do you have any, it seems sort of like the book is a little bit of self-therapy, maybe?
Oh, it was 100%. It was 100% therapy for me. It was all the feelings I had. I'm pretty big on like self-deprecation. So I'm here for it, to tell the ugly side, and the, you know, the pretty ugly side of my thoughts in a kind of a funny way, I think. So somebody said that I was at the Boston Art Book Fair a couple weeks ago, and I had this book, and somebody said I was very snarky about it. I don't know if that was like good or not, but it's a little snarky take on creative struggles. So.
And you gave a talk at CSX about it?
Yes, I did. It was great. It was kind of like a kumbaya moment for everybody. I wanted to give this talk about just, creative struggles there. And I had like a really good reception. I realized I don't know if I kind of gave people solutions. I kind of like told, hey, we're all having these problems. But in the end, I was like, did I give anybody like any solutions to these problems? I don't know. But I think it was like a nice moment of just, I think everybody just want to be acknowledged, that like people see that I see them through myself. Like we all see each other, that we're all feeling this way, and it's okay. So it was a good little therapy session I led at CXC. So therapy for artists.
All right, before we wrap up, does anybody have any last questions for Jannie?
Oh, I wish I could move on. Read all the messages.
Yeah, there's been lots of great messages. All right. Well, I hope everybody gets a copy of The Lost Mitten and leaves an online review for Jannie.
Yes, please. I would love
Leave
that.
reviews. All authors need reviews.
Yes,
online.
please.
Yeah. Oh, Bob, Jannie and Jana, I know. I really love chickens, so I love animal characters. You can see that, right? Like everywhere everything I do involves animal characters.
Yes, there's lots of animals in KCU. I love it.
Yeah, Jannie, you asked me what animal I would be, and I didn't know.
Yes.
I was really stumped about that. I don't know. But we should all figure out what animal we are, I think. That's what we should take away from this
Yes.
event here.
Draw yourself as an alter ego animal, yes.
Okay, well, I always like to end with everybody, if you can, unmute yourself and turn on your camera so we can say goodnight to each other. It was super fun. Oh, Maritza, you're a platypus. Woohoo! Love that. Love that. Yes. Yay.
I love that.
If anybody else can type really fast what you are, I'm gonna be looking.
Some animal ideas for Jen.
Oh, raccoon.
Raccoon.
Okay. Oh, sea cucumber! Stan! Woohoo!
Sea cucumber. Oh my
Amazing.
gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Thank
My
you.
parents used to make me eat sea cucumbers.
I know.
That's a Chinese food. Oh my gosh.
Oh, a narwhal, a
Cheetah.
cheetah. Patrick is a monkey. Oh, Pamela's an otter. Okay, yay!
To come.
The
Can make
chimichanga.
those into books. These are book characters now. All of you go ahead and start drawing them.
Yeah, we should
Cow.
all do. Jade, this is another challenge, right? We need to draw a comic of ourselves as an animal.
There we go.
Put it on the agenda for 2024.
I will. Do it. Make it happen.
Okay.
Yay.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you for coming, everyone.